Okay, and we are live. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Global Citizens. My name is Calvin. I'm the show's creator and also its host. So, my guest for today has an ultimate calling card that says that he has never and will never work for anyone, and he has done so successfully for 20 years. And the reason why, and I don't think he really needs to do that, this man has worked since he was 17, and in 10 years, he become a millionaire. He has since multiple channels of making $1 billion business. Along with that, he is an international speaker, author, investor, entrepreneur, and now he is a philanthropist with the Unstoppable Millionaire Academy, whereby he teach people on how to be able to achieve their dream and live the life that they want. So please welcome the Unstoppable Millionaire himself, Mr. Tahir Hussain. How are you, Mr. Tahir? Hope you're well.
Good morning, Calvin. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. How are you?
Fantastic, also. Thank you so much for coming for the show. All right. So we will start with our first question. And for this, though, I actually would love if you would tell a bit more about your background to all of the audience. Maybe I might have missed out some part when I was introducing you. So, my very first question is, what mottos or mantras do you live by, which has been the basis of your life and how you run your business?
Absolutely, Calvin. And let's go back. I grew up in Dubai. I've lived there for almost 30 years, and then I lived a couple of years in US where I was studying, and a couple of years in Malaysia. And we'll talk more about it. So what I've done is I'm a software engineer by qualification. However, I've never practiced software engineering as a profession because it didn't pay well for me, for my living standards. So I went right into business, and the basis for what I do in life is simple: is growth. Whatever you do in life today, see if you have grown by an inch, by a centimeter, by a meter, because that is what matters when it comes to mantra of the basis of how I live my life. And when it comes to career, of course, I started in business. The word entrepreneurship wasn't a very cool word 20 years ago. However, today people are encouraged in the world of entrepreneurship, but back then all about job insecurities. So it was hard when you would tell someone go and be an entrepreneur, and they would be like, "What is that?" It was either traditional businesses or working for a multinational company and making some good money. So for me to say talk about personal development and growth was a big deal 20 years ago. However, today it's a cool word where we are like, "Oh my God, you're an entrepreneur." So let's talk more about it. So that's one part about the basis for my life. I've lived by the same rules of entrepreneurship 20 years ago when I started compared to today when it's a pretty cool thing. And I stuck with it because what happens in businesses is businesses go up and down. And usually when the business is down, the temptation of going back and working for someone again, if you're happy doing that, please don't and do it. But I wasn't happy. I thought it was not a cool idea to go and work for someone. So back then, when businesses were down and people would tell you that, oh my God, you should go get a secure job and things like that. That was a part where I drew a line and I said, no, that's not something I'm gonna do. And that became the basis of my life. That whatever I did and was not to work for someone. It's okay to work with someone for me. It's not okay to work for someone for me. And that became the basis of my life when I got started. And I stick by that principle till today.
Hmm. It sure worked very well, actually, since where you are now.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Okay, okay. I actually will dive into your entrepreneurship career a bit later. So, for those of you who just tuned in to this channel for the very first time, so Global Citizens is a channel whereby I host individuals who are multicultural, who have multicultural backgrounds, such as myself, a third culture kid, a cross culture kid, digital nomads, and expatriates. So basically, people who have experienced living a life outside of your borders, outside of your parents' home. The reason being is that when you visit a country for a holiday, yes, you are exposed to their culture. You might see something that is interesting, but the thing is that you are there for a holiday. You are not there to live there, you are not there to work there, you are not there to experience every single part of their life. Because all of these individuals who has experienced multicultural background, we see the ups and downs, positive and negative, from living in different parts of the world, especially our host country. So as a result, it become who we are. All right, Mr. Tahir. So my next question is actually will deal more with your experience. So you are of United Arab Emirates on Dubai. You live in the United States. I believe it was Oklahoma.
Calvin, could you repeat the last
And then,
two
of course,
questions?
it's Malaysia. Oh, sorry. Sorry. It was I believe it was Oklahoma. As I recall, you mentioned you are from Oklahoma State University, and then
Yes,
Malaysia, right?
yes.
Okay. So from all these three countries that you have ever lived in, yeah, what have you discovered a little bit more about yourselves? And sorry, what have you discovered a little bit more about yourselves? And what measures have you done to make sure stick to your roots, to remember who you are from your time growing up in UAE?
Good. Well, that's a good question. Now, I feel being an expat in a country gives you an added advantage because a lot of people usually have this mindset where they come into a country, they're a foreigner, and they're like, oh my God, things are not the same for me compared to the locals of that country. And I feel that's an added advantage because
Yeah,
you get a kick. You get a kick where you have to be extra smart, extra hardworking, extra everything if you have to live in that country. Whether it was in Oklahoma, well, I was studying, I was doing some entrepreneurship stuff in the US, or whether it is in Malaysia or any other country where you're listening from right now. The mindset is the laws usually don't favor the foreigners. They may not in many areas. For example, in Malaysia, what would happen is
yeah,
Malaysians don't need to worry about having their visa runs. They don't need to worry about renewing their passports and visas and stuff to live in the country. So for me to do that, I need to be sure that I'm not complacent and I'm out there giving my 100%. Now, in the process of doing that, what
yeah,
happens is you as an individual grow massively without realizing. Now, if only if that's your attitude. If your attitude is, oh my God, the rules don't work for me and I'm an expat over here, what will I do? And if it becomes a struggle, then what is important to understand is that you're not growing to the complete potential of what your life is designed to do for you. So use those laws and rules and challenges that you get in that particular region to allow you to grow. US um, allowed me to grow at a point where I can't imagine because when you go to a country, the culture changes. Now, I'll tell you what that means. It means that Dubai is a Muslim city, okay? US isn't, although they have this amazing freedom of
yeah,
religion. However, when I went there for the first time and to see things the way I saw them, from cultural differences to well the good news was they spoke English and my English isn't bad, so that was good news. But other than that, it was difficult to understand the culture uh, because I grew up with a certain mindset when back in Dubai. So for me to see women who were divorced at the age of 21, 22, who were my college mates, was like, oh my God, that was a culture shock. And the list goes on. So what was important for me at that point of time was to learn how to unlearn what I knew, was to understand that what happens to them, and why does it happen to them. The other thing that happened in my university was attendance wasn't compulsory. That was exciting because back in Dubai it was compulsory. I can't skip classes.
wait.
In my college
Oh, wait,
in
wait, wait.
US, I could.
Replay back. You Attendance wasn't compulsory. Really, one of my former lecturer is from OSU himself. I didn't know about this. Wow. Okay, I should have applied there.
Yeah. How cool is
Why? He
that?
didn't tell me about this. Wow. I should have applied to OSU last time. Okay. Sorry. Please continue with that.
Yeah, so that's the answer to the question, Calvin, that get ready to unlearn because you're entering, think of this as an adventure. and just get ready, be excited, absorb every knowledge and everything you see around you, good or bad, and just move.
Have you ever experienced, people like to say failure, but in this show, I don't like to use that term. I like to use it a learning opportunity due to the cultural difference.
Right. I've experienced learning opportunities, and I like that. I call them challenges. And Due to cultural differences, I would say I didn't even compartmentalize this in that fashion. So in businesses, you experience failures, probably because of your skills. But I've never blamed any of my failures to my cultural differences, probably because I think of myself as an international citizen. Businesses differ in Hong Kong versus
Yep.
Dubai versus US. And the answer to that question for me would be that if you ever feel that you failed because of cultural differences, I would say that's simply because you didn't learn enough. Learn more about that. And The answer to your question is yes. And again, I've never thought about failing or not getting something in life based on culture. I've always given merit to the
Mm,
industry
all
where I
right.
failed, whether it's real estate or something else. So the answer is yes. There was a time when I thought the laws didn't work for me because I was a foreigner, and that's okay. But I immediately had to stop thinking that is the reason why, and I had to start thinking what could have I done to make sure that I understood the laws for the foreigners in the country better, so I don't repeat the same mistakes again.
Okay. How have you deal with reverse cultural shock? Like when you meet those who are native to your country from UAE, because after years of living away, trying to become a successful entrepreneur, there is some mindset of yours that would have developed, or maybe there are some mindsets that you believe from your past that maybe this does not work in business. So how have you have handled it? Because I myself have felt a lot of frustration at times because living in Singapore for 15 years, which is an incredibly developed country, and then back to Indonesia, which is still an upstart and a developing country.
All right, so the first thing is one of the things I love doing when I go to a country, especially if I'm living there, is I get right into the culture of it. I'll give you a real example. So when I came to Malaysia for the first time, I saw Chinese Malaysians, and I was like, "Oh my God, what are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "We live here." I'm like, "When are you going back?" So I didn't realize that we had Chinese Malaysians who were a part of Malaysia when I came here the first time. And and for me that was a culture shock. So what did I do? I became a good so these are some great friends of mine, by the way. And I started learning all about it. What happened? How did you reach here? I went right into the history of understanding where they came from. Same with Indian Malaysians and of course the Malays who live here. And I got fascinated understanding what happened. The word is fascination. And you go right into the local crowd. Now, a lot of expats usually come to a country looking for other expats. And what happens? And again, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yep.
But what that does is it doesn't allow you to learn from the locals or the natives there, the way they eat, the way they talk, the slang that goes in their language, their daily routine. And once you understand that's a wow experience, once you understand that's a cultural experience, you realize that you will be fascinated without having any judgments. Because I'll give you the other side of that story. If you come from a culture, doesn't matter what culture that is, and you look at someone else and you're like, oh my God, no, no, that's not me, and all that stuff. Now what happens is you've closed yourself to the capabilities of what you can learn from them. Now, is any culture perfect? The answer is no. Nothing is perfect.
Yep.
But understanding where they come from, I got fascinated understanding how Chinese Malaysians were here, fascinated understanding how Indian Malaysians were here, fascinated understanding how the Southern Americans back in Oklahoma started living there. And that fascination made me understand their lifestyle better. And the more I understood them better, some of them are some of my great business partners today. So think of that for a minute. It's amazing.
All right. Okay. Oh,
Cool.
okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. I sincerely apologize to it. The Wi-Fi here is really bad. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Even Sonia, who is actually commentating, is actually even highlighted it. Here we go. Oh dear. Okay. Tahir, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Hello.
I think my voice is reaching you a couple of seconds late.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. That was what Sonia highlighted. I think my image was frozen from your end because of the internet connection. I am really sorry about this. This is not something we can really fix much here in Indonesia, fortunately. All right, Tahir. So now I actually want to focus more on your entrepreneurship. Yeah. So on the scale of 1 to 10, how important do you feel is the basis of the basic and knowledge as compared to having somebody having $1 million immediately?
Oh, so on a scale of 1 to 10, I think knowledge is 10. So one of the things I always tell people is the best investment you would ever make is in yourself.
Wow.
Why? So today, if I had $1 million and I lost it, would I feel bad? Yes, I will feel terrible. But if I
Okay.
had the knowledge to get it in the first place, I could do it again and again. And I think that's the key, that knowledge is on a scale of 1 to 10 extremely important. Now said that, knowledge without execution means nothing. On a scale of 1 to 10, knowledge without execution is zero. Because there's so many people who go and get all the knowledge they want, but they don't execute, they don't practice, they don't take the next step. So knowledge is potential power. Unless you unleash it, then it becomes real power.
All right. Okay. 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 Uh, Sorry. Okay. All right. So earlier you mentioned regarding entrepreneurship nowadays is the term is becoming cooler in a sense. So the thing is that in social media generation, people tend to see all the beautiful and positive things of social media. Like for example, maybe somebody who is in their 20s traveling through different parts of the world, attending conferences, maybe for some Bitcoin talks. However, it's definitely not a beautiful part of it's definitely not the easy part of the journey, right? So for yourself, maybe if you don't mind, maybe can you share with us a little bit more on what are some of the personal struggles and headaches that you have encountered throughout your journey, and what is somebody who is a young entrepreneur should do to actually remain persistent in where they are.
Absolutely, yes. And the first part on social media, let me start with that. Before I tell you about my journey, is that social media makes everything look so cool. And if you think that's all that there is to social media, then you're mistaken. There's more to it. So that's number one. And that coolness makes people who are struggling in entrepreneurship, in businesses, in life, realize that everyone else's life is so fascinating, so amazing, so awesome. And that's not true. If you have seen any of my speeches, or if you catch me live, one of the things I love talking about is failure. And the reason I love talking about failure is because no success in life comes without failing. It's a fact. If you're not ready to fail, go and do something else. Go and find an
Yeah.
industry where failing is not an option, right? Because in the world of business and entrepreneurship, failing is
Yep.
important. And in social media, I wish there are more people who talk about failing than just successes and their beautiful mansions and cars and lifestyle. And again, nothing wrong with it. But while people talk about that, they should also talk about what went into getting that. It's important. In my businesses, I've lost a couple of $1 million. in businesses. And if you understand that I don't come from a very rich family, financially rich family, you will understand that losing a couple of $1 million was a big deal for me. It shattered me, it killed me at many levels. And that molded and made me who I am today as a human being, who I am today in terms of my business, in terms of my brand, The Unstoppable, and everything else that I do. Would that not have happened, I probably wouldn't be. I probably would be the person buying the next best car, buying the next best house. And again, there's nothing wrong in buying the next best car or buying the next best house, but there's more to life once you have fulfilled your personal requirement in the world of being successful. So that's important to understand.
Yeah. Okay. So recently, I was actually attended a webinar by Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, and I've also been reading a documentary about Shah Rukh Khan, the king of Bollywood. So one of the area that I want to focus now is actually on family. Do you agree that things like your spirituality, like for example prayers and being diligent in your religion and having a strong family bond, is an important anchor that keep you centered in your entrepreneurship journey and also your life as an expatriate?
The answer is yes, and I'll break it into two. I'll talk about spirituality and then I'll talk about family. Let's start with family. Uh,
Yep.
where you come
Sure.
from, and it doesn't matter where you came from, good or bad, tormented life versus an awesome life, it's important, and this is me talking as a life coach. It's important for you to embrace and come in terms with that, because if
Yep.
you don't, potential, and that's just on the part of being embracing whatever that is. I have coached people who have had traumatic childhood, and it's important to understand that trauma allows you to become who you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't be that version of you. And I think that's important to understand and embrace that. Not just understand it, but embrace it that that was a part of living. And for whatever reason, God, in their infinite wisdom, decided for that to happen. Life happens for you. It doesn't happen.
Hmm.
If God wanted you dead, you would be dead. Let's start from there, right? So if you're still
Yeah,
alive,
that's true.
if you're still alive and you're living this magical life for whatever reason, it's good or bad, embrace it and tell that life is happening for you. And you see, what is once you know who you are and where you come from, it allows you to get rooted. It allows you to walk in a certain way. Now, that doesn't mean that you should not acknowledge others where they came from, or do not acknowledge other cultures. All of that is important. But embracing yours is most important thing. I see a lot of expats go to a different country and start pretending to be people from that country. And I think that is the most dangerous thing you would do, not understanding your roots and where you come from. So that's extremely important. Now, the reason I'm from a close family bonds, getting into spirituality is important is because there are times in your life when you need help, when you know that you just look up into the sky and you're like, I wish someone is out there. And that's important, because once you start becoming spiritual, understand that the human body has two needs: the physical body that you're seeing on the camera right now, and the spiritual side of it, which you don't see on the camera right now. Now, some of you who are listening to this and don't believe in that, try explaining love to a heart doctor. And love doesn't exist in science, because it has not been proven. Hate,
Yeah.
anger doesn't exist in science. So these are the requirements of the spiritual side of your body. And believing in God, something bigger than you, is spirituality. And once you do that, what happens is, not only do you think about yourself and your loved ones, but you take it a step forward and start thinking about the world and the community where you live in. And I think that's magical.
All right. Okay. Uh, okay. I actually heard this phrase last time. Money is the root of all evil. I think this was mentioned in my past interview with Mr. Jürgen Palian. So, do you feel that the amount of money you make is equates to the amount of happiness in your life, or how have you seen it? Because I know from your humble background, money was definitely a point at one point in your life. Now you already have it, but the thing is does that make you happier, or what actually to you is the interpretation of happiness?
Right. Well, two parts. That money is the root cause of all evil. That's a joke. It's not.
Yeah, you needed to pay the bills,
I
guys.
I
You needed to pay the
I
bills.
grew up with that joke. That's true. I grew up with that joke because you know how many rich people say money is the root cause of all evil? Successful rich people, zero.
Yeah,
And the reason is because it's not. See, when people grow up in a certain community, they have certain set of beliefs, right or wrong, good or bad. They just have certain set of beliefs. I challenge everyone watching this video to question those beliefs. Now, questioning those beliefs doesn't mean you have to be disrespectful or you should get angry or you should hurt someone. No, questioning a belief basically means if that belief is not serving you to get to the next level in life, then what good is that belief? For example, for those of you who are in relationships, if you told your girlfriend all girlfriends are evil, what kind of a relationship you will have
you're pretty much gonna be
with a girl or
single
with a
for life.
girlfriend?
You're gonna be single for life.
So the same is true with money and the relationship you have with money. If your belief says that it doesn't matter where you got this belief from, if your belief says that money is the root cause of all evil, how rich are you going to be? I can tell you the answer: not very rich, because you'll
Yeah,
always keep thinking it's evil, it's bad, it's you'll feel guilty even if you make some money, and that is not a place you want to be at. So that's number one. Money is not the root cause of all evil. I'll tell you what money does. Money compounds whoever you are. If you're a bad person, it compounds the badness in you. If you are a great person, if you're a kind hearted person, it compounds the greatness in you. And again, you spoke about Tony and Dean. Look at these guys. These guys are my mentors. I've met Tony a couple of times back in US, back in London. Amazing human beings. I mean, Tony is feeding 100 million people. That's what money does. 100 million people fed in a year. That's what money does. And that's just one example. There's countless of those examples out there. Again, money quantifies, compounds who you are. It's not evil and it's not good. It just quantifies who you are. So that's the first part, Kelvin, on money is the root cause of all evil. Sorry, could you repeat the second part of your question?
yeah, sorry. So, what do you interpret as your own happiness? Like for myself, for example, this show that I've been doing now for at least around sorry, it was from September last year. So, September, October, November, December, January, and now it's February. This show is like a personal baby to me, is that I've been able to have the fortune of connecting with people of multiple backgrounds, of high financial status like yourself. My last guest, one of my close friends, Mr. Eric Fong, and in fact, a good buddy of mine and our recent contributor here, Miss Sonia. Oh, okay. She highlighted that how bad the bandwidth is here. Yeah, yeah. This is really unfortunate. Indonesians' bandwidth need to be improved on, so that's another story. But yeah, so I have the fortune of connecting with a lot of different wonderful individuals, and this is something that gives me happiness. In fact, my last question actually relates to an article of mine that was recently published. So, for yourself, is how do you correlate? How do you interpret happiness? Is it from your wealth, or maybe from other aspects of it?
Right. Now, happiness, if related to wealth, equals misery. I'll
Oh,
repeat that. Happiness, when related with wealth, equals misery. And I'll tell
yeah,
you why. I understand people who are listening to this video probably right now or this broadcast who are struggling making their ends meet. I understand an extra amount, a couple of $1,000s a month would mean that you would be happy. And the reality is no. A couple of $1,000s a month would allow you to run your kitchen. That will give you that tension, the stress you had gone, because now you don't need to worry about money, right? But now the question is, what happens after a couple of $1,000s? So let's say you need $2,000 to run your kitchen. Another $2,000 to send your kids to a great school, right? Now, when you've met your basic life requirements, what happens? And that's why happiness never equals wealth, because happiness equals fulfillment, right? And I'll talk about fulfillment in a minute, but let me address wealth equals happiness. Wealth never equals happiness. Wealth allows you to have a certain amount of de-stress that you might be stressful about running a kitchen. But once you have met that requirement, what happens? Most people get complacent and most people don't care about anything else. In fact, most people get not complacent, most people get miserable. I know people who live right here in Singapore, in Malaysia, across Southeast Asia, across the US, across Europe, who are millionaires and multimillionaires and they're miserable. Why? They're living in $1 million homes and they're miserable. Some of us, if they would have seen their home, they would be like, wow, what a cool place that is. But they're miserable living in it. Why? Because happiness never equals the amount of money you have. Happiness never equals the car you drive. Happiness never equals the house you live in. Now, all of having a car, having a great house, and all that is important, but that is not how you measure happiness, right? It is like having a headache and taking medicines for constipation. Yeah, it's just wrong. It just wouldn't work. So same is the case over here. So once you understand that wealth doesn't equal happiness, and even if you got some money and that makes you feel excited, taking your family on a good vacation makes you feel excited, then you realize that there's a deep meaning underlying that. If you buy a good car, is that for you so you can drive alone every time? No. So you can take your girlfriend, you can take your wife, you can take your family in it. So what is that? So it means that happiness equals something that you do for others, which is beyond what you do for yourself. Because what you do for yourself, usually people would say is greedy, selfish. And it's okay to be greedy and selfish to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But after that, happiness starts.
Wait, can I give a few moments to give you a clap? I really love to hear that word. Yes, it is not wrong to be selfish for yourself once in a while, guys. Seriously. Doesn't mean that you always have to give in to other people. There are times whereby you need to know what is your limit. Yeah, sorry, Tahir. Please continue.
Right. And thank you for that, Calvin. So once you understand that happiness, and again, take this from a guy who has lived the other side. Take this from a guy who has seen the grass greener on the other side. It's not. I'll tell you, it's green right here. Okay. So happiness is about contributing to others beyond your wildest imagination, and it starts with your own family first. So that's why I love, Kelvin, your question about family that you asked earlier, because if you cannot contribute to anyone in your life, your family, your society, your community, your countries, continents, then that basically means that you will be miserable.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much money you have.
Indeed.
That's happiness for you.
All right. All right. So this is actually going to be my last question. So recently, I posted an article called Two Sides of the Coin, whereby intercultural and intergenerational clash. So the reason why I write that is because one of the motive for me creating this show was, firstly, I was formerly employed by a British employer. So while by no means by he a bad person, the problem with him is that he doesn't understand that there's a difference in culture on how he runs stuff in the UK and when we were in Singapore at that time. Along with that, this is from my personal experience itself, is that how cultures and generations can clash. Like, for example, in the past, things like micromanagement, you need to be under the thumb, you need to put your employee under your thumb. You need to make sure that things is just, you need to know every single thing, you need to harm every single one to the point that people thought you are a dictator, is not something that can work with in most industry, and especially in the era of social media generation. The reason being is that while these generations, I have the utmost faith to say that they are definitely a lot more intelligent in a sense compared to even my generation, since I'm considered part of the Gen Y. Wow, I'm old. Okay, never mind that. So yeah, Along with that, however, the thing is that emotionally they are a lot more fragile. They do not have. They, instead of trying to motivate them with money, which a lot of times they are not motivated. I think it's because they come from a well-to-do family. A lot of times, so they seek more on the sense of fulfillment as compared to drive their purpose. So, Tahir, how would you advise? What three pieces of advice would you give to this the multicultural youths, an entrepreneurs, and also an expat?
Now, I have good news for the multicultural youth, um, and then entrepreneurs and expats after that. The
Yeah,
good news is you live in a world of social media. You live in a world where we call one world, one community. We talk about globalization. You could be sitting anywhere on the planet as long as you have internet. You could connect with anyone else across the world.
let's
20
make
years
sure it's
ago, that
not
wasn't
Indonesian
possible.
internet. Let's make sure it's not Indonesian internet. It sucks. It's really sucks. I
Right. So,
Yeah, it
right.
sucks.
Yeah.
I got so much
And I
headaches.
hope they work on it.
Oh, we have the same plus.
Right. Oh, we do. Yeah. So, so the point is that today we talk about globalization. Today we have companies that launch IPOs and they create record number of millionaires in a day. Uh, Never heard of 10 years ago, 20 years ago. In fact, some of youth, multicultural youth, uh, um, people, regardless of whether you do a job or you're an entrepreneur, would think of people doing business 20 years ago as Stone Age. You would be like, what? You didn't have a mobile phone? Forget smartphones. Mobile phone was rare 20 years ago. So
At the cinder
understanding,
block, the giant cinder block thing.
that's right. And then you're like hanging out from a window, hoping you get a better signal.
Oh, fun fact, my father still have that
This,
phone. The Nokia, the cinder block. Yeah, he still have it. It's not working anymore, but I think he can use it to knock somebody out. I used to scare with
he
that.
can probably sell it. He can probably sell it as an antique. So, and you realize you're laughing about this because that's just how the world has grown. Just
Indeed.
the world. Doesn't matter which part of the world you came from. So if you are a youth who comes from a different culture, first embrace. Think of it as an adventure. Do
Yeah.
not resist. It's okay if you disagree with certain religious beliefs, certain styles, certain themes, certain colors, certain anything.
Yep.
It's okay. But today, because of social media, instead of disagreeing peacefully and respecting someone else, most of us get into a fight. We get into
Yes.
this mode of hatred. We are like my way or highway. And that's not good because something that social media robbed us from with time is tolerance.
Yeah.
We stopped tolerating. It's like either it's this or that, nothing else in the middle. And that's not true. In fact, a decade from now, there will be new cultures that would emerge that we
Yes,
don't
we will
even
be
know.
living in the internet, as Mark Zuckerberg might say.
Correct. Through internet, through Instagram, through so many of these means that we don't even know. And if you're not tolerant about these cultures as a youth, and I understand it's hard to be tolerant as a youth, it's hard to be tolerant when you're in your 20s right now. You're like, because anger comes naturally. Uh,
Yeah, I'm 27, so
so take it in. Take it in. Believe that you're living through an era that no human being has ever lived in.
yeah,
How cool is that? How cool is that? I have students in 61 countries right now who I coach, train, speak to, teach them something. And from those 61 countries, there were countries that I didn't even know existed 2 years ago. Wow. Think of that for a minute. That's the world we live in.
yeah,
So youths understand that. Now, the second thing is that you spoke about youths, I mean, you spoke about entrepreneurs and everyone else. That
yeah.
what do you do with your culture? The idea is while you still want to preserve your heritage and your roots, and you should do that no matter which country you live in, at the same time, what a lot of us don't do is acknowledge and embrace. or recognize other other cultures in their region. So I'm a Muslim, and some people would call me a liberal Muslim, but I just tell them that I'm a Muslim. That's it. But for me to acknowledge Buddhism, what it meant when I came to Malaysia, when I was in Singapore, I was like, wow, that's amazing. When it comes to peace, or Hinduism, or Catholicism, or Christianity in general, is every culture, religion will have the bad eggs. As a human being, your job is to focus on the goodness of what the culture or the spirituality or the religion brings, not the other way around. And remember, every culture has good and bad. So most of us, if you focus on what's bad and you embrace that, you will be in pain. You, your family, your loved ones. Religions and cultures don't suffer. People suffer. Remember that. But if you can find goodness in that, if you can find goodness in whatever people do in the country you live in, I've got friends, I've got Singaporean friends. I'm just talking about this region. Singaporean friends, amazing Indonesian friends since you're in Indonesia right now, amazing friends in Malaysia across all ethnicities. And the reason is because when you love, when you come from a point of seeing them and the goodness they have in their culture and religion, trust me, entrepreneurs, trust me, peer employees who do jobs, you will start looking at things from a fresh pair of eyes. You'll start understanding them from a whole different point of view. It will allow you to grow in your business. It will allow you to grow in your jobs, and it will allow you to be more peaceful and joy, and it will allow you to make a lot more friends. That's what I would recommend you to do.
Correct. Correct. Okay. Sorry, Tyre. Earlier is because I think of the network issue. I'm so sorry again. This one is I really tried so many times to fix it, but I can't really do it. I think there was one question that we missed out, and that is on the scale of 1 to 10. Yeah, how important do you feel is knowledge and the basic of it as compared to just having the $1 billion immediately? If you don't mind, maybe you can reiterate that.
Absolutely. And I did answer that, but I'll answer it again. So on a scale of 1 to 10, knowledge versus happiness, right?
Yeah.
No, happiness versus knowledge versus
Knowledge.
$1 million,
Yeah.
right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, knowledge is 10. $1 million is zero. It's not even one. Now I
What?
know people who are watching this video are saying those who don't have $1 million would say that, or who have never made $1 million would say that. Come on, Ty, really? And the answer is yes, really. Now those again who are watching this video who are millionaires and multimillionaires will say amen to that. And the reason is because you need to understand that the best investment I've ever made is in myself. I've spent probably about $30,000 becoming a software engineer, $150,000 on personal development.
Yeah. 5 times more
Which
than.
one made me more money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works. Yeah,
The
it's
one that
fine.
made me more money was personal development. And till today, I learn. Till today, I'm going to conferences around the world, be with people like Tony Robbins, Indra Ziosi, Brian Tracy, Les Brown, and the list goes on, just to be in the same room with them.
Indeed.
Till that is the best investment I've ever made, and then everything else falls in. So it's absolutely knowledge, guys. Now, most of you are lazy about getting the knowledge because we think once we graduate, knowledge, education is over. No, it's not. It actually starts once you graduate because till graduation, you got academic education. After that, you get life education.
Yeah. All right. Okay. This is why I actually every single one of my guests I try to ask more on who they are instead of what they do. How do they get rich? All of this. The reason being is that if you know what forms their basis, what kinds of characters, maybe what kind of personal belief that they have. If you know what is this and you apply it to yourself, then this is what is going to give you the personal development.
And Calvin, I love what you're doing. So keep doing that always because you're adding so much value to the community, to the world, to your audience.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. This is the end of Global Citizens, episode 34. So thank you so much for Tyre for coming here today. Again, I am so sorry for the Wi-Fi. I don't really know how to do this. I've tried at least 3 different kind of connections, completely different area in my house and in my office in order to have a better Wi-Fi. All of them give me the same result, even though it didn't happen last time. I sincerely apologize on that. I've been trying to work on it, and I'm going to keep on working on it.
Again, Calvin, I appreciate what you did because you could have just canceled the whole session and you could have said, forget it's the Wi-Fi's problem, but you still came out. I appreciate your courage to do that with a few glitches here and there, but I think I admire your consistency of doing what you're doing. So keep
Thank
it
you
up.
so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Tahir, do you have anything you might want to announce? Maybe an upcoming seminar or upcoming lesson? Just to go let you guys know, all of the social media links to connect Tahir is actually in the description box. So if you do want to enroll in his Unstoppable Millionaire Academy, or you might have some question on entrepreneurship that you feel that he has added a lot of value today, please just reach out to him. But please let him know that where you know that you got it from my show, because this is his personal privacy. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So you reach out to me on any of my social media, leave me a message. Me or someone from my team will get back to you on that, and let me know that you saw me here at Global K Citizens. Because what that would allow me to do is it would allow me to edify you a lot more and understand where you're coming from. And I would love to welcome you. And again, feel free to ask me any questions through social media on any of my platforms. Or again, all my schedules are on my social media. There's quite a lot of things going on. I won't get into them. So if I'm in your city, reach out to me, come have a picture, let's post it on social media, have a handshake, and let me know you heard about me on Global Citizens. That would be lovely.
All right. Okay. So earlier I mentioned this. So I recently have one of my article published by Third Culture Thoughts. Third Culture Thoughts is run by Marjan El Salon. Marjan is actually one of my past guests. So I put an article called Two Sides of the Coin, a clash between intergenerational and intercultural, because I feel that in the world that we are developing now, due to it being smaller because of social media, there you cannot keep on insisting that this is how we always do it, or because of preserving of your culture, or maybe a certain way of doing stuff, then you are stubborn enough not to be able to progress. So I put the article it's in my Facebook, but the thing is that it's also on my other social media links. So guys, please check it out. Thank you again. Thank you, Tahir, so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. And if you're ever in Indonesia, or if you're ever in Singapore and I'm there, do hit me up. Let's meet up. Yeah.
Likewise, Calvin, if you're in Malaysia or wherever I am in Dubai, US, let's catch up. I travel to Singapore very often, not so much to Indonesia, probably because of the internet connection.
That's what.
Let's catch up.
I was actually supposed to be in Singapore last week, but due to the corona, I can't. So I'm hoping to go there in April, in either late March or April, or even early March. So let's look at it. All right. Thank you so much, Tahir. And that's the end of the show. Bye bye.
See ya. Bye.